Alright, in this video we're going to take a look at the last part of activity 133 called constraining a sketch, and we're going to be looking at numbers 30 through 35 to finish out our part. So as we take a look here, number 30 has watching a video on design intent, and design intent is a strategy-based method of modeling. So then that way, as you need to maybe make revisions to a model or make changes to some of its geometry, how are ways that you can do that and make it where you maybe make one change that affects the entire sketch in a positive way that you are kind of controlling the behavior, as opposed to making multiple changes or having to edit some things that and do a lot of editing kind of within the model. All right, number 31, to kind of showcase this, it says, what if we change this base dimension of 100 millimeters to 125? What prediction do we make? So my prediction here would be that we're going to make this base wider, but because of some of the other dimensions that we have set here and some of the geometric constraints, is that the base is the only thing that's going to get wider, and then the rest of this is going to stay the same. So I can double click on the dimension. I'm going to make this 125, and that's exactly what happens, is that this sketch gets wider, the base of it does, but we're still maintaining the same height. It doesn't increase proportionally. It just goes through and gets a wider base of support. Here it says what happens if we change the overall dimension from 45 to 60 and then to 80 millimeter. So if I went from 45, if I go to 60, you can see the effect. It does go through the portions that are, and if we go to 80, you can definitely see what happens there. So what we want to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit undo to get us back to 45 a couple times. And what we want in this case for our design intent is that when we change the height of this, we really probably don't want all that, we don't want these to get shorter down here on toward the base or anything like that. We just want lines 5 and 7 to get longer, as noted by number 34 in the document, or on the Inkling page. So as we do that, one is that let's go ahead and let's get rid of this 15 millimeter dimension. Now when I go through and change, they want us to go from 45 in number 35, 45 to 100 millimeters on the overall height. Now the only thing that's going to change is those lines that we had. The only other issue is that we don't have a fully constrained sketch in order to go through and extrude. So what we're going to end up doing is, in order to do that, one thing we can see is what kinds of sketch constraints or what things do we need to have, because here's what's happening is those lines are still able to move. So what are some things that we can do to control? It's the endpoint of this line. These go through and can move up and down, and these move side to side. So what are some things that we can do to control this? There's a few different things that we can do to make sure that this is controlled. One thing that's kind of noted, it's not really directly in the student version. You may have to help out your students with this. It is in the teacher guide of the Inkling page, but you can always go through and make sure there's an equal constraint between these two, which we do have. But the other thing is we need to add, we took away a dimensional constraint up here. Why don't we add another one to make that happen? So like from here to here, we may want to go through and add a dimensional constraint. You see as soon as I place it, all the lines go black again. This value is going to be 25. Again, this is seen in the teacher guide, but it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily pointed out in the student version of the activity. So just kind of looking over my constraints here, those are some of the things that we kind of have as we do that, and looking at some of those constraints. All right, 35, we're going to end up, says change the overall vertical height of your sketch from 45 to 100, which we did, and we're going to finish the sketch and extrude the profile 5 millimeters without the holes, so that way we'll be void. And the question is does it represent what's in the final picture? So we'll finish the sketch, we'll hit extrude. Again, I'm going to not select the circles, I'm going to choose everything around it. 5 millimeters for our extrusion thickness, and I say OK. And by leaving those circles in there, we get some natural holes that'll form into our part, but looks like our final part goes through and looks just like what we have in the image. And that's kind of really what it looks like, all the learning that goes along with sketching in the Fusion 360 environment, and then a few different kind of conceptual things, design intent, adding geometric constraints get implied in this activity. So it's a really great one to work through with your students and to continue to exercise, asking students, making sure, do you have a fully constrained sketch? You always want to have a fully constrained sketch before you go and you do any 3D features to that particular sketch. So this finishes up activity 133 and finishes up with the walkthrough. Again, there are some things that we can do if I wanted to go back and make any changes. I can go down here to the model history tree, say edit sketch. Maybe I want to put this base back down to 100, and then I want to finish. I think this may be one of the things there, and it should go through and automatically update for our sketch. If I want to go through and change again, I can edit the sketch, make some different changes. Here's 150, say finish the sketch, and here's what will happen is the extrusion automatically updates to what we have. I believe just by looking at the picture, they use 100 for the base, and then so then that way it looks like this. So 100, 125, again, the numbers don't really matter. The whole idea behind this activity is learning how to constrain a sketch and using some of the features in Fusion 360 to do so.